welcome to this edition of Elephants in the Practice Room. We are here today with Matt Hooker. Matt is a friend of Jalene's, and when we were putting together our list of people to include in the podcast, we definitely wanted to include Matt. I had met him previously because one of Matt's many talents is that he is an excellent photographer. And he had taken some pictures of Jaleen and myself for some press stuff. So, Jaleen, how do you know Matt? Before we let Matt talk all about his fabulous self.
Well, besides being like super talented, he's just a really, really wonderful human, and he's one of the best people I know. Matt and I, I'm no longer in the military, but I did play with the 36th Infantry Army Band here in Austin, and I played oboe with them. And Matt came from active duty Army, and came as a saxophone as your primary instrument there, but in the Army you kind of do a lot of things. And we just hit it off. We worked in the same music performance teams together, and we kind of have a similar story with being active duty and transitioning into civilian life and transitioning into like the reserve type component. And he has supported me in my career as a friend and as a musician. I love that I was able to introduce him to you, and that he made some amazing, really, really great photos of us that we are still using and that are still all over, and we always get compliments on them. And he has a lot of particular like sets of skills. So I knew when we started this, he was definitely one of the people that we wanted to have on, because his story is awesome, and he's just one of the best people. So did I nail it? I got it.
And one of the reasons why we're interviewing Matt is because like many of you, Matt maybe didn't follow the quote traditional pattern and maybe is still inventing himself year after year in different ways. And that's definitely an elephant that is not discussed
in the room. That's not discussed
yeah.
in music schools. Yeah. So that's good. Thank
you.
So
anyway, Matt, why are we talking to you beyond like you're a fellow musician and you're fabulous? Tell us your story.
We hear your story. So back in the day.
Such a good intro. I don't really know how to follow that up. I should hang out with you guys more often. That self-esteem just shot through the roof.
That we don't do this more often. Yeah.
I would not consider myself a traditional classical musician. I started off just like everybody else in middle school, playing the instrument that I thought would get the most girls. And
which is what?
Wait, which is oboe? What?
No, so actually I wanted to play trombone because I thought the slide was cool, but they told me that I didn't have long enough arms to play trombone.
I just picture like a little like dinosaur like trying to like
Yeah. And like, if you haven't seen me before, I'm a Sasquatch. My arms are huge, but I think they just had too many trombones, and they were like, well, the saxophone players get the girls. And I was like, done.
I don't think you can say that in public schools nowadays, but
you probably can't. But I mean, I was interested in, waffling around, and they convinced me to play saxophone, and it worked out.
What grade was that?
This was 5th grade going into 6th.
5th grade here in Texas?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, I fell in love with it. I played piano in elementary school, had a wonderful 3rd grade teacher who also taught piano. Best teacher I've ever had still to this day. And fell in love with music, got a little into jazz, thought saxophone or trombone might be cool. And it wasn't actually until probably high school, maybe sophomore year of high school, that I really started loving the process of learning music. I would do it, and I would, we'd do chair tests, and I'd come in somewhere near the top of the section, but not really at the top, not until I got to high school. And then I love the process, started loving the process of learning the music, finding something that I can't play, doing all the steps that are needed in order to learn to play it. And I had some wonderful band directors in high school, Don Haynes and Travis Onsley. And if you're in, anywhere in Texas, you probably know those names. And I decided to become a music teacher because building that sense of community around music was everything. It made high school worth doing. And I was like, yeah, if I'm gonna die on this earth one day, I want to go down being remembered as someone who was able to build community. And I loved music, so I was like, let's just combine the two. So I became a music teacher and loved it. I would say the free spirit of the free spirit type of band director. Dave Ramsey likes to put people into pockets, the free spirits and then the analytical logical thinkers. And I would have benefited from having an assistant band director who was more organized and more logical thinking. But when I became band director, it was in Albuquerque, and they only have one band director per school there. It's not like Texas where you have a army of teachers and staff. And so
Did you do college here in Texas? Where did you
no, I went
get
to
your
college
training?
in Louisiana. Yeah. Applied to a bunch of places, but Louisiana, a Northwestern state, offered me a full ride. And so I was like, well, I guess I can't
I
really
don't know.
say no to that, Mom.
And
But
that was 4 years.
that was a good music school. The education program there was pretty poppin'. And again, sense of community, sense of ownership of the band. And I got out. My wife actually found me a job in Albuquerque. I was I was not looking very hard, and she was mulling around online, and she's like, "Well, they're building a brand new high school. You should apply for that job." Of course, the self-doubt sinks in, and the imposter syndrome. And I was like, I'm just out of high school. I mean, I'm just out of college. I don't really know what I'm doing yet. And fortunately, the principal at that school was looking for something different than all of the rest of the Albuquerque teachers. And so she decided that she was not going to hire anyone from inside New Mexico. It had to be someone from out of state. And when I talked to him on the phone, I was their pick.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know
The only
why?
job.
Did you ever find out why they were trying not to hire anyone within the state?
Part of it was they were looking for somebody completely different. The people in New Mexico had like their ways of doing things. They didn't want the same old pool of band directors to pull from. But I became good friends with the choir teacher. Her name was Clarissa Clark, and she was on that hiring committee. And she said the enthusiasm and excitement was the big selling point. Everybody else had their bullet talking points of things they'd like to teach and the pedagogy they really focus on and their philosophy of teaching. And I had just come from rowing practice. So I rowed crew all through college, and I had just gotten home. I was still in my tights, no shirt on. This is in Louisiana, outside of a trailer that my wife and I had moved into that semester. And so I'm sweating, I'm dripping. I'm like, I need some water. And they're like, hey, we have a call. Is now a good time? And I wasn't going to say no. Unfortunately, there was no FaceTime back then. So it was just a phone call.
Okay. Okay.
So
Duh.
I'm sitting on the
in
porch
my mind
on my
I
cell
had the
phone,
whole thing. Okay.
my flip phone, and I talked to them, sweating, dripping all over the porch, like this has to go faster because I'm gonna die out here. And I
But
did
you
that.
probably the endorphins also probably made you think a little better and maybe even sound more enthusiastic.
It
So that's
probably didn't
awesome.
hurt. That's for sure. But yeah, we had a good time on the phone, and we were, giggling and laughing and talking about all the hopes and dreams of an excited band program and making kids fall in love with music. Cause that was my whole philosophy of teaching, was like
You
people
just
should
wanted to
love
love music.
learning music.
Was it a large program? Like, what's the head count here? Was it several bands? Was it one band?
It was one. It was a high school, but it was the first year that it was open. So when we started in the fall, the whole school wasn't even open yet. The band hall wasn't finished in August when we started. And so we were I taught summer band and the first few weeks of school out of a science classroom, the one with the slate tables. And so we started with around 30. And when I left after 4 years, we were up at 100, but still one band director. And, it was a great opportunity. I would never say that it was a mistake going to Albuquerque, but they didn't pay very well, and having one band director only ever was tough. It was a lonely endeavor for someone who loves friendship and community. Jaleen can attest to this.
Yeah.
Doing that day in and day out
He's not
alone.
introverted. No.
So,
so you
my
never
wife
really felt like you were a part of a community there?
No, I actually, that's part of the reason I joined the National Guard in Albuquerque, was because I wanted to be a musician with other musicians. And we were, I think, visiting Ariel's parents, and I was like, how do I play again? I miss playing with not high schoolers. And the National Guard popped up, and I was like, I'll just go talk to the commander. And in college, I've not ever been a great musician, but I've always been a very strong musician.
What?
I don't,
We can.
What does that even
we'll
mean?
About that offline. No, that's how
so
we're wrong.
You know that saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none."
Yes.
I have never been able to fully focus on a single instrument to get to the elite level, like the kind of level that you can make a living just playing that instrument. We'll play saxophone and I'll get really good, and then I'll learn jazz and it feels like I'm starting over, and then I'll switch to bass clarinet. I played bass clarinet all through high school. I don't know if you know that, but I couldn't get into the top band on saxophone. And Don Haynes was like, well, we need bass clarinets and I need two of them and you're good. And the other bass clarinet player was like an all-stater. And so I spent all of high school playing bass clarinet in concert band. I only played
I
saxophone
mean,
in
that makes
jazz
a lot
band.
of sense now because I've heard you play bass clarinet and I thought you were a saxophone guy. So the Army kind of volunteers you to do certain things and I've seen you do alto, tenor, bari, bass clarinet. I've seen you sing, and his singing is very, he's a showman. Stop it. Don't. So but you're amazing at all of them. And I'm not just saying that to flatter you. So, but I had no idea that you spent so much time on bass clarinet in high school at all.
Yeah, bass clarinet in high school. And I didn't want to march woodwinds in college. So I borrowed from Don Haynes again. I borrowed a baritone the summer after my senior year, and I learned
But
baritone
the
before I went to
brass
college. Yeah.
baritone, like the
Yeah.
little baby tuba looking
hmm
baritone.
Yeah.
Shut
And
up.
that's how I got into the Army. When I went into the National Guard in Albuquerque, the band there wasn't super strong. It's certainly not like Texas. And one of the guys there had been on active duty. And he's like, "Oh, the active duty bands are way better. It's way better. You should try it." And I asked to audition, and they said there were no saxophone slots available. So I could try out on flute or clarinet or euphonium. And I played baritone all through college, baritone and tuba and college marching band. So I was like, whatever, I'll do it on euphonium. Just give me a few months and you can come out and audition. And so we
That's
set a
not
date.
normal, dude. That's not normal.
He set a date a few months out, which I was like, "Ooh, this will be so fun. I'll get to practice and play, and I'll get the kids to help me out." And then the recruiter called me back, or the band liaison called me back like the next day and was like, "Oh, I'm actually going to be out at University of New Mexico next Thursday. Can you be ready by then? I'll just knock you guys both out at the same time." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like a typical dude. Of course I can. No big deal. It's fine. It's fine. And at that point I hadn't played euphonium in like 2 years. So I was freaking out, and I spent every day and all weekend playing until my face went numb.
Do you
And
remember what the audition consisted of? I remember my active duty audition.
yeah, it was the national
Specifically, do you
anthem,
do
the
scales?
America the Beautiful. I did not have to do scales, thankfully. And then a packet of quickly prepared music. And then I had to pick, your prepared
I'm
music.
older than you, I forget, because it was different for me. Okay.
But it was good enough to get into the School of Music, and then I learned euphonium for real, and that's what I played on active duty for almost 7 years. I was a euphonium player.
Because I think a lot of people who are listening to this might not know how the Army band system works with that. Can you just talk a little bit about your audition and then the basic training, School of Music, like how that lines up? What does that look like from a job standpoint, so
Yeah,
people
sure.
can follow along? When you say School of Music, what does that mean?
So in the Army, when you meet a recruiter, at any other job, you go and you take a test to see what your aptitudes are. And then they ask you what jobs you want. And then they stick you in a spot that they need. And hopefully they line up. With the band, it's a little different. You tell them you need to go to the band, and they send a band liaison to audition you to make sure that you have the requisite skill set to go into the band field. And it's one of the few fields in the military.
Make sure you don't.
Yeah. It's one of the few fields where they don't train you from scratch. You have to know how to play an instrument in order to get that job. And so when you pass the audition, they sign you up. They put you in a band MOS, the military occupational specialty. So you're assigned as a musician to the Army, and then they send you to basic training, just with everybody else.
Regular basic training, not special music basic training.
Nope. And
where did you go? Did you go to Fort Jackson?
Yeah, I went to Fort Jackson, and I was so nervous because my last name's Hooker, and I was afraid that was going to be what they made fun of me for, but they didn't. They found out I was a band director, a high school band director.
So that trumps your last name.
I don't think anyone made fun of the last name, but they started calling me the choir teacher for whatever reason, because, knuckleheads.
Right. They have to have something.
Yeah. All through basic, I was the choir teacher. "Hey, choir teacher, ask the choir teacher. Oh, he's a teacher. He's ask choir teacher. Oh, are you running?"
Yeah, but how old were you when you were there? Because were you there with all the little 18-year-olds?
I was.
You were
I was 23.
Okay.
23 or
So
24.
you were kind of one of the older people there too.
Yeah, I was
So they
definitely
probably
one of the older. And when you go into the military as a musician, you go in as an E4 enlisted rank. So everybody else starts as a 1 or a 2. And so I outranked everybody in my basic training unit also. So they put
Did
you
you
in
wear
charge right
rank
away.
at basic training?
Yeah.
We didn't wear rank
Oh,
when
that's
I went,
nice. That
but
would have been
that was a long time ago.
that would have been wonderful.
Yeah, so nobody knew until graduation day when I put rank on. They're like, "What's this? You think you're better than?" I'm like, "No, I just have already gone to college and stuff." But they didn't want they wanted it an even playing field. We didn't wear rank until graduation day.
That's nice. I see that's a different I took a very different tact. I was a 20-something-year-old guy with
Hmm.
so much enthusiasm and ego. I had lots of ego then.
You did?
So much. I have been humbled many times since, but I had a lot of ego. And so after teaching high school kids, spending all day of the year teaching high school kids, I went to basic during the summer. And when they asked me that question, "Oh, you think you're better than us?" I was like, "Yes, I do." "What makes you think you're better? Just because you went to college?" I-
A little bit.
Yeah, I was giving out homework assignments over the summer to kids your age like a week
Oh,
ago.
that's
So
true.
let's
Oh.
not.
Boy.
So yeah, it didn't start off super great. It ended up fine. I had a really good time, and it was like it was like a really long, hot, sweaty summer camp with guns. And then I went back to teaching for a while, and
Yikes.
then after that, you go to your AIT, Advanced Individual Training, and for musicians in the military, that's going to the music school, which is out in Virginia
Norfolk.
Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
It's in
beautiful.
the Naval Amphibious Base, but it's a base with all the services. They send their musicians to one like combined music school. So we're there with like sailors and Marines and things.
And it was great. It
Nice.
was 10
So,
weeks of no homework, no school, no kids, no other obligations except to play music. And it was great to be able to focus.
so you were married and had kids at that point?
I was married and we had a daughter at the time. Malia was almost a year old, and I
Okay.
left her and my wife in Texas with my parents for the summer.
That's rude.
What kind of made you, make that switch? Because you went from being the band director or the choir teacher, or whatever you want to call yourself, to deciding to, be active duty. So like, what did you
Well,
like?
this was reserve, right? This
Yeah,
was the
it
National
started
Guard.
off
This
as
was
reserve.
part-time.
Oh, okay.
This was
Started
part-time.
part-time. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So this was sort of like an extra thing so you could play.
Yeah.
And have community.
Yeah. And
Did they give you benefits? Like what benefits did you use? Usually there's some really good incentives.
I
Did
don't
you
think
have loan? You didn't have loans because you had a full ride.
No, Ariel had loans, but we didn't get loan repayment when I enlisted. It was like a month after they stopped doing the loan repayment program.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that one burned a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, there weren't a lot of incentives financially to get in. I didn't even know about TRICARE. Then we didn't switch over to TRICARE Reserve. I was still on the school district's medical insurance.
Whoa.
So TRICARE is something you get through the military? Health
Mhm.
insurance. Okay.
The best health insurance. Yes.
Yeah. It's a lot less expensive and almost everybody takes it. It's great. It's a good reason to do it. And then in the reserves, you pay a little bit. When you're on active duty, everything's 100% covered. It's like as close to universal health care as you'll get in this country.
That's why we got married before I went into active duty.
Smart.
So Regu could get health insurance too while I was doing all that stuff. It's good.
Smart.
It's an option. Yep. Yeah.
So
okay.
I did
So how long?
Came back to school for a year, and that was the year that I decided that I didn't want to do teaching long term. I wanted to play again. I missed playing, and I was good at playing, or I thought I was good at playing. And so I told my school towards the end of the year that I was going to go active duty, and this would be my last year teaching, which was hard, but I got a good 4 years in. And so I got one class that I started with freshmen and got to see them all graduate, and we left and went on active duty after the next summer.
I have a question. I want to know how the conversation went with your wife when you're like, hey, I want to join the Army to play my saxophone and I'm going to be away and do all these things. Or was it her idea? I wasn't surprised if it was.
Albuquerque wasn't working for us. Being a teacher, working like a lot, always working, sort of being isolated in the teaching profession, even physically at the school, like there was nobody around the band hall. We were at the far end of the school. There wasn't anyone to teach with. So I felt isolated. And when I got home, I would cope then by playing video games. With a newborn at home, playing video games was not conducive to family life. And so I was feeling stuck. I don't know if I could do this for the next 40 years of my life. And my wife subsequently was also feeling very isolated with a husband who was gone so much during the day for work. And then when he got home, he was lonely and coping by being alone more, which left her feeling sort of in a lurch, like, great, I'm going to raise this kid all by myself. Sucks. And so we had a long talk on one of our road trips, as both of our families, or both of our sets of parents, were 12-hour drive in different directions. So we made that drive a lot during the year. That's when couples get to talk, because there's no interruptions and distractions and you can't get out of a conversation. At one point, one of the conversations got around to, like, what if we didn't do like Army band part-time? What if we did it full-time? And then we started looking into it and the pay and the benefits and being able to move around and create new communities. And, it was being in the Army was like your automatic built-in community.
Yeah.
And
you get a fresh family.
Yeah, that was a huge selling point for me. So RL was on board and went along with it. And it was a really good decision for us then. We left Albuquerque. We weren't going to make enough money to get out of debt anytime in the near future. Yeah. They pay like $30,000 a year before taxes. Working, 10 hours a day, I was still...
That was the band director, not the National Guard in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I was still on food stamps as a band director. I had kids graduate that went to work at Verizon, and their paychecks were bigger than mine. And I was like, dude, this is dumb.
This is not what I went to school for. No.
Yeah. So we left and, got in the Army, and it was great. We moved up to Washington State, and it was fantastic. I met some of the best friends I've ever had. And I still talk to them. The first couple of guys I met there, I still call when I have crappy days at work now. And I'll call them and be like, bro, I just need to talk to you. You know that TikTok trend where guys will call their friends right before bed and be like,
Gabriel did it the other night to his bro. And he's like,
These are the guys that I will call and be like, bro, I love you. And they don't ask questions. They're like, I love you too, man.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
So I got my community and I got to play. And I got to teach still because, teacher with big ego. And I'm like, I think we could maybe do this. We could just do this a little bit different. And I might have some ideas. And
you're like teaching in the Army, like your performance team and everything, right?
Yeah, I was new. So they put me in the leftover group, the MPT Bravo. It was everybody who wasn't in one of the cool groups, the rock band or the brass band or the Latin band. And everybody else just got thrown into MPT Bravo, music performance team, the leftover one. And I had ideas.
I bet you made it awesome.
I did. I bet
you did. Yeah.
There was a kind of a burnt out Evan who was running the group. And she's like, you know what? Sure. You go do rehearsals. And we switched things up. And then they ended up giving me that group until I left. And we became one of the premier performing ensembles there. It was fun. It was some crazy, weird shows with dancing and custom arrangements. And, I was trying not to be bored, and it worked out.
So like, what kind of stuff are you doing when you're an active duty musician?
Well, and it depends on the duty station that you're in, and what the goal of that division or the corps that you're assigned to.
Different bases have different obligations.
If you're at Fort Jackson, for example, that's a basic training installation. You're going to be playing a lot of ceremonies for all of the graduating classes for all of the schools there. So it's heavy on the ceremonies. Fort Hood was the first corps division band. So first corps band had a lot of ceremonies, but for part of the year, we would just go and perform in public. And we had this series in the spring that was the music in our schools. And we would spend like 2 months traveling around to elementary and middle schools on base and off base around the community, just putting on shows. And the first year we did it, it was all ceremonial stuff. And they had a narrator that was telling the kids stuff that I know that they don't care about. And so the next year I was like, can I have some suggestions for the program? And it got crazy. And then the third year we did it, it was like the kids they saw us come and it was like a rock concert. They were screaming in the hallways and they're like, what are you going to do this year?
And what's the purpose of going out there? You're not looking to recruit people. You're looking to do something very specific. What's the mission of the Army Band's music performance teams?
It's a good question. When it started, it was almost all on base schools or schools just off base. And so it was meant to sort of be the bridge between the Army and civilian life. It was the first time people, sometimes the only time people really get to interact with soldiers on a face-to-face level. And our job was to sort of bridge the gap in a very exciting, fun, entertaining way. Takes a lot of the fear out of soldiers too. When you see military soldiers on a field with weapons, it can be scary, but a soldier dancing with a sousaphone over his shoulder is not scary. No matter how big they are, they're not
Yeah.
scary. And so kids will come and ask questions, and they had some wild questions, but that whole community building aspect of that show series was, I mean, it was the highlight of my year because I got to be a teacher and I got to be a musician and I got to be an entertainer and I got to be the center of attention often, and a community builder, somebody that can make people feel seen or heard or connected in some way. And
Yeah.
many of those families have lost family members, like lost a dad or a mom. And so when we get to go to those shows, there's an entertainment aspect, and there's also a honoring the sacrifice that those families make. Even the ones that don't lose a parent, they're still going on deployment. So those kids are without a dad or without a mom for, like, huge chunks of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And very few people understand what that's like outside of the military. And so, when we go do the shows, it's a way for us to acknowledge what they're going through and say it's going to be okay. And we're here to,
You're not alone.
let's
Yeah.
have some fun. We got your back. So it was wonderful. My favorite
Wow,
part
awesome.
of Washington, I think.
That was Washington. So what base was that?
Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Awesome.
Joint
So
base.
how long were you there?
3 years. I think most tours called tours of duty, each duty station you get stationed at, you're usually there for 3 years. So after that first 3 years in Washington, I got stationed in Japan and
wow.
got to move my family to Japan for 2 years.
How long was your initial contract with the Army? Did you sign a 3-year contract and then extend as you went? Or did you just sign up for 6 years and that's why they were able to shuffle you around?
No, I think it was I want to say it was a 4-year enlistment,
Mm-hmm.
but when you get close to that, at the end of your 3rd year, they ask you if you want to re-enlist. And when you choose to re-enlist, they say, well, you get like your choice of duty station if you choose to re-enlist.
So I was setting you up. Yeah. I wanted to see how you ended up in Japan. That's
yeah. I mean, I wanted something out of the country. I was like, if someone's going to pay to send me somewhere else in the world to live, I will take it. So I wanted to go to Germany or Japan or Heidelberg. That would have been really cool.
That was a choice on my list. That's a good duty station.
Yeah, that's what I heard. My piano player buddy got to go to Germany, and I went to Japan, and we got to talk and live our experiences together in different countries, and it was very different. But Japan was wonderful, very welcoming. This was like 100%. The mission there was 100% building goodwill capital with Japan as a country. So our job was to go out into the community and put on as many concerts in as many places as possible with as many groups as we had. So that
you're busy? That sounds like a busy.
Yeah. A lot of time off base playing. We didn't do a lot of ceremonies. We didn't do a lot of concerts actually on base. They were mostly out in the community, and we got to travel a lot. And wherever we went, it was like a rock concert. This is what I imagine superstars in the United States feel like when people are like screaming and throwing, bits of clothing and stuff. This is what it was like.
You mean
in
the
Japan.
crowd was grateful? They were excited.
Oh, they were
hyped
nuts. They were nuts.
Yeah.
We showed up, people screamed. We showed up, people would bring us food, and like every concert we went to off base was packed. Standing room only. People would drop what they were doing and come over. If it was in the middle of a festival, they'd forget their arts and crafts projects and come over and watch us.
Awesome.
It's so different
Wow.
from in the United States, because when we do concerts here, they're not always well attended.
So big
why do
holiday
you
ones are. Yeah.
why do you think there's that big enthusiasm there for that?
I think it's just a novelty. Like we're not from Japan. We're different. We're in uniform. We're the Americans, and the band there was good. We had a lot of really, really strong players while I was there. And so most of the concerts we did were stuff that I'd be happy to show people. Like, look, this is what we did in Japan. And I can't say that for every concert that I've done with the Army. There are plenty where I'm like, I'm glad
There's
nobody
good
was recording.
performances and bad performances everywhere. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Most of the ones in Japan were wonderful, and reception was great. So it was a good experience.
You had the kids with you and Ariel in Japan, right? How was
Yep.
that transition?
It was interesting. The food, I think, was the biggest hurdle, because the kids like to be picky, And in Japan, everything's different. Everything's different. And so the kids try to be picky. And then we were like, well, you don't have an option to be picky. So you're just going to eat whatever you see, or
Here's your
whatever
food.
we hand you, you're going to try it. And we found a lot of new foods, and it was kind of a blast. I will say the 7-Elevens in Japan are nothing like the United States.
They're
It's one of
supposed to
our
be super
favorite
awesome.
places. One of
Yeah.
our favorite places to eat. Fresh food all day
Wow.
long. It gets delivered like 3 or 4 times a day.
To 7
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Sushi, like spaghetti. I've
Wow.
gone in there before and grabbed a tray of sushi that was made like that morning. And the lady, like, when I was checking out, she like took it off the counter and threw it in the trash. And I was like, what? That was my food. I was going to buy that. And
Wow.
she pointed at the date because it was made that morning, but it was like past its like 3 or 4 hour best buy
Hourly?
date. And so she threw it in the trash and like went to the
Wow.
back and got one off of the delivery that was getting made while I was at the store and handed me a fresh one.
Wow. Amazing.
So it's very different from 7-Elevens here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I want to buy sushi at a 7-Eleven or really any bodega here in the States.
I wouldn't here, but
Maybe in
so-
Hawaii, but I don't know.
Yeah. I actually heard they're supposed to be trying it in New York. The Japanese style 7-Elevens. They're going to trial in New York
Mhm.
to see if that's something
That would be a good place to start.
that
yeah.
would be cool. That'd
Awesome.
be
So
very
how
cool.
how long was Japan?
2 years. We were supposed to be there for 3, but we got pregnant with Declan, and we had a lot of concerns. My wife especially had a lot of concerns about having a baby in Japan. We had heard horror stories of friends of ours that had gone to have their child at the naval base, which is the big military hospital close by there, and they had limited delivery rooms, limited staff, and so they would schedule your deliveries. It wasn't a come and wait and then we'll help you when your baby's ready to come out. It was, we're only going to have 3 people on and 1 OB. So we're going to schedule your C-section, whether you needed it or not. It was just going to be scheduled. And a good friend of ours, one of my first photography clients, actually, she said that the only dates they offered her were 10 days before her due date, 10 or 12 days before her due date, and then 2 weeks after her due date. That was all they could offer her. And so she ended up having her baby delivered via C-section, even though it didn't need to be, 2 weeks early because that was the best availability they could offer. And the alternative was to go to a Japanese hospital, which it would have been a normal birth, but you had to pay out of pocket first, all up front, and then talk to TRICARE on the back end and try to get reimbursed for as much of it as you could.
And that always takes a long time. It's very complicated.
Yeah. So all of that led to a ton of anxiety around having a baby in
Of course.
Japan. So I had a friend of mine, Mike Purcell, who helped me work the system and get us moved back to the States a year early. And we came back to Texas where the rest of our family was so that we could have our 3rd and final child while surrounded by all the love and support that everybody deserves, but not everybody gets when you have a baby.
Wow. That's pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Then
So
we're back to-
what have you been doing since you got back here to Texas?
Well, I worked at Fort Hood for a year with the 1st Cavalry Division Band and decided that was enough Army for me. The vibe there was very different. It was all, training for war. Let's celebrate war. We're getting ready to go to war. We come back from war. Let's go back and kick some butt more at war. And it's
This
not-
particular base deploys a lot. So it's a very, very busy, very, very, very large base here in Texas.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the largest, I think it's the largest Army installation in
The country
the Army
and the Army. Yeah.
anywhere.
It's huge.
Mhm.
So yeah, it wasn't as fun. We did a lot of ceremonies in Texas, in the field, in the
Mhm.
sun, listened to speeches while sweat dripped into my eyes. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I want to sign up for another few years of this.
But you got
So-
a really cool hat,
I did. I still have it too.
dude.
Just as cool
They
as it
were
was
the
then.
big. They just were those big. What are they called? Ooh,
You
I
had to
don't
ask
mean to.
me. Now I'm
I'm
blanking.
sorry.
Stetsons.
Stetsons. It's like
Yeah.
a big. It's kind of like a show of pride to be on that base, and you get that. It's like not
Mhm.
everybody in the Army has that kind of distinct. Yeah.
It's a cool Stetson. It was great on the field. Blocked a lot of sun and didn't soak up a lot of sweat, which is fortunate here. But it was time to get out, and so I got out and I was like, I'm gonna go to Austin. I hear they have a decent band, and
So you're
When I-
transitioning to part time now.
I
from
transitioned to
active duty
part-time.
national.
yeah, my wife and I were like, let's try doing something different. I thought about going back to teaching because I missed teaching at that point. And in
What'd you
Texas,
miss
it would have
about
been a
it?
lot being around kids. I mean, the teaching part of the job, the part that you only get to do like about 15% of the time, was the best. Watching a kid take a
Have a
concept
light
and you're
bulb.
like, here's something I understand. And they're like, I don't get it. What's vibrato? I don't even know what that means. And then when you watch them figure it out and then they finally get it, watching that like spark go off and the joy and excitement, enthusiasm was like rocket fuel for me. And it
Mm.
happened all the time while I was teaching. But in Albuquerque, when I was teaching that first job, that was only a very small portion of the job. And that's something they never teach you in undergrad when you're becoming a music teacher, is how much of your job is actually teaching and how much of it is all the other administrative communication, marketing, finance, blah, 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 all the other parts of the job. So I
Mm.
missed the teaching part.
Everything
I
else.
missed teaching. I didn't necessarily miss being a teacher, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So we looked at other options. And at that point, I'd been taking photos for a couple of years for the Army. And I was like, why don't we just try, I don't know, doing this professionally, like making money. So I listened to a lot of podcasts and watched an embarrassing number of YouTube videos, people who are self-starters, and had a friend who was getting married. And she invited us. And I was like, can I bring my camera and like pretend I'm a videographer and I'll just like film your wedding and see what I can come up with? And she's like, I don't care, whatever. My uncle's photographing it. You do whatever you want. And that wedding film launched our company, Intrinsic Moment Pictures. It was good. She loved it. She cried. First 3 times she watched it, she and her husband got all weepy eyed. And we started offering it to people for like dirt cheap because I needed some clients. And that helped with the whole creative, stretching my creative muscles. And I still needed to play music. So I asked to transfer into National Guard from active duty and join the 36th, where I met Jaleen.
Mhm.
And, you know, they made it sound all super easy from the recruiter standpoint. When I was at Fort Hood, he's like, yeah, you talk to everyone down there. There's your paperwork. I'm going to sign you up for 1 year so you'll be in your retention window and you can get a fat bonus when you re-enlist. And I was like, this sounds wonderful. Thanks for hooking me up. If you don't know, recruiters are not always to be trusted. So don't take them at their word. Read the paperwork, talk to other people, because recruiters will tell you what they need to tell you to get their job done. So
To be clear, I want to like make sure we're being safe here. So a lot of times when recruiters are working with musicians specifically, they just know the general Army information and not the musician's specific language that needs to be in the contracts. So a lot of times now they're like, oh, we'll assign you to this band, but there's some extra things that you have to do. That's not true as a musician. Like if you're in the band, you're a musician. That's true. So like there's all these like little things. And I think you probably got caught up in some of that stuff, right?
not this time. The first time I
Okay.
joined the Army, I did. I got put in as a, 42 Alpha. And then they're like, we'll change it later. Honest, we'll change it later. And
No.
that was a little bit of a nightmare.
Okay, what does
But
that mean? For someone like
it's
me, I'm like, I have no clue what that
Okay.
means.
that's the human resources. Those are the people that make stuff run in the background and take care of all of the paperwork. I'm not a paperwork
Mm,
person, but that was the
mm-hmm,
slot that they needed to put me into to meet a quota at the time, and then I had to go through a whole rigmarole to be reclassed to an actual musician on
mm,
You're
paper.
at their mercy.
Yeah.
Like you have to really advocate for yourself and know what you're asking for specifically. And for younger people who don't know how that works, it can be very, very frustrating when you get caught in that system. Talk to Army band people if you're gonna be interested in something like that, and they can
Yeah.
give you the real information.
So I
So
got a
are you,
drill date, and I showed up to drill just on a drill weekend, and I was like, cool,
Yeah.
I'm your new saxophone player. And Steve Lightsey, bless his heart, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, was like, who are you? And they're like,
I
oh,
don't
the
know
recruiter
anything about you. Yeah.
said you had approved all of this stuff, and I thought you had signed paperwork. He's like, never heard your name before, and I'm pretty sure I'd remember a hooker if I saw it on some
That
paperwork.
sounds exactly like something he would say. Yep.
Oh, I was like, well, I'm supposed to be in the band. Does this mean I'm not in the band? He's like, well, I mean, I don't know. You're supposed to be here. Come on in. Just come on in. What do you play? I said, I play saxophone. And he goes, we're way over strength on saxophones. We don't have room for you there. And I was like, well, I mean, I also play euphonium. And he's like, no, we're over strength on euphoniums too. I was like, well, you know what? Just put me wherever you need to. I can take pictures. I play a bunch of instruments. What else do you play? You play bass clarinet by chance? And I should have kept my dang gum mouth shut because since 2019, I've been playing bass clarinet for concert band every year. no matter what. I keep waiting for a slot to open. We have a saxophone opening. Now you can move back to your main instrument. And every
But
time
to
it's
be
a new
clear,
person.
okay, no, be honest. So just because you're in concert band playing bass clarinet does not mean you're not playing saxophone or doing other fun stuff. Because Army likes to kind of shuffle you and have you do multiple things. So I've probably seen you singing or playing saxophone significantly more than concert band. Because concert band is like a small component for what we do all year long.
That's true.
Own it.
I don't know
It's
if
true.
it's a small component. It's a pretty big component. Those
Well, maybe
rehearsals are
right
pretty
now.
long.
Maybe right now. I've been out a year. Things change. I'm just saying. Maybe
Yeah.
all you're doing is concert band now.
I got to play saxophone too.
A lot.
But a lot of bass clarinet also. And I was a euphonium player on active duty. So when we get to play like festive overture, like I want to play the euphonium parts, not the bass clarinet parts, but they have too many euphonium players. Too many brass in general, I think.
They're good too. The euphonium
They
players.
are. They're-
They're legit.
You're still part-time military, and then are you
I
still
am.
doing your photography business kind of full-time?
I am not doing it full time. When the pandemic hit, we had to start refunding wedding deposits left and right. And I was like,
Ah,
I mean, to
killer.
be honest, I think even leading up to then, I was like, we need a regular income, not the, we're rich this month and then we don't have any money coming in. And I don't know if we're going to be able to pay for food. And so I think we had already started looking around for full-time gigs. And then the pandemic hit spring break of 2020. And I was like, yep, I guess we're done. So we hung up the wedding business for a while. And I happened to get this weird job working at the children's hospital as a photographer and videographer. And it has been very exciting since. I've seen.
I remember when that
Awesome.
started and you were all like, look at this. Isn't this a perfect job? And we were all like, oh my gosh, this is you. And, like, tell them what you do.
Yeah, I'm a digital media manager for the Pediatric Heart Center at Dell Children's. And I mean, I guess it started, the chief surgeon that moved here and started the program was like, I need someone here full time, all the time on calls that can document everything that happens. And that was my main mission at the beginning. And then they found out I could shoot videos and edit and had a lot of skill sets. And so they started putting me to work.
What does that mean? Document everything that happens.
So the Dell Children's has been around since 2007. And up until that point, they had done some heart surgeries at the hospital, a few a year, and none of them super complicated and super complex. For the really hard surgeries, transplants and things like that, they would send people to Dallas or Houston. Well, this surgeon had worked down in Houston and wanted something different from his hospital, didn't want it to feel like a mega hospital, or sometimes we jokingly say it, we don't want it to feel like a baby factory where people come in, they get their problem fixed, and then they get sent out for the next one. And so he moved to Austin and started a new heart program, started recruiting all of these like hotshot clinicians to be able to provide a higher level of care for Austin than we could do in the past. And while he was doing that, he has been doing this for long enough to know the importance of being able to show what you're doing instead of just telling people we do this. It's different when you can show them. And so my job was to help enable him to show the world what is happening at the hospital. So nearly all of the photographs that have come out of the heart program at Dell Children's in the last 5 years it was probably me taking them. All the videos are probably me shooting them.
A musician.
A musician, yeah, who had to pivot to be creative.
Yeah. Do you find that you get the community that you crave there?
That is a tough question. That is a very tough question. I get some sense of community there, but I guess it's very similar to a sound engineer in the band. When we're in rehearsal, all the musicians are in the room rehearsing. The sound engineer is off in a booth preparing for the next concert. And like that in the hospital, all of the clinicians, the nurses, the doctors, the intensivists, the anesthesiologists, those are the ones that see and interact with patients every day, all day long. They're the ones that resuscitate patients when their heart stops. I'm the one in the sound booth, in the editing room, waiting to be told this needs to get shot. And then I will go and take photographs. And then I go back to my office, away from all of the action. And so in a sense, yes, I am part of a community. It is not the same kind of connection that you would get if you're on the unit with the patients. And so, yeah, I feel connected. Oftentimes I feel like an outsider because I'm a very creative person. I'm the free spirit. And so communicating to other people how exciting this photo was or how great this video turned out is tough when you're talking to clinicians who are talking about the pulse ox meters being changed out and how frustrated they are that it's not connecting with the Philips monitors like it was supposed to. There's a disconnect in language.
I want to put something out there. That's not just what you do there, because I've seen footage of you that you have made of children that come out of heart surgery, major heart surgery, and he will document the moments that that kid gets back into its parents' arms. And he gets to document those faces and that journey. And I think as a parent, like, I don't want to trivialize what you do as just the clinical side. He creates these intrinsic moments for families, and it's really special and it's very good. And I think that's why they wanted him above all people to do that job, because it's not just the black and white stuff. He sees the people there, and that's the creative, that's the artist in you. That's one of the reasons I love you.
Yeah, that's the best part of the job is when when the photography stops becoming a luxury and starts becoming part of the healing process. And I had a wonderful patient and family. They were the quintessential, like, you can't not love them, and very spunky, very, like, they were memorable. And the mom had spent years waiting for her child's transplant, and her coping mechanism to help, contain all of the feelings was to shoot photos and videos on her phone. And she did it for years, built an online community of friends that helped follow, were able to follow along with their medical journey. And this was like my second year there. That where I transitioned from being just the bougie photographer for the department who could afford one to feeling more like I could be part of make a real difference. And that mom told me that when I was in the room with them, that was helpful for her because it was the first time that she could let her guard down and not worry about missing moments, because she could trust that I was capturing them for her.
Mm-hmm.
And so she could relax for a while and just be with her kid. And that story was, it was a lot and a lot of feelings. And while she was there, she learned how to play a ukulele. It was like, we had a music therapy team there, freaking awesome, a music therapy team. And they loved Disney movies. And so they learned some Moana songs on ukulele.
Yeah.
And I got to watch them do that with music therapy and filmed it and photographed it and made sure the family had access to all that. She didn't end up surviving, and it was a really long, sad story, but it was having the videos, having the photos. And I was there for like all of the rough spots where the family's in the room falling apart, and they invited me in and they were like, take pictures, like ugly crying. It's so sad, but like, it's being real. That was the first time that I finally felt like I was part of the care team and not just the photographers snooping in on people's stories. And since then, I've gotten to see lots of stuff, a lot of crazy births in the delivery unit for happy ending families, and some that knew it was not going to be a happy ending, but really knew that the photography was going to be impactful.
Or up to date on how you got into your Dell Children's photography job, and now you're part-time with the military. So
what else is there?
Yeah, is there another chapter?
Yep.
I still have my photography business on the side, and I still take clients when I deem them worthy of my time.
So you have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Aren't you also doing your master's degree?
Oh, yeah, I am in grad school also.
That too.
Come on. It's Friday.
It is
There's
Friday.
a lot.
Yeah,
There's a lot.
And I have homework this weekend. No, I work at a hospital, so everyone's got advanced degrees. And I was like the only one in the building who had a degree in something that wasn't the job that they were doing. Everybody else go to nursing school, you go to master's in nursing, and you become an awesome nurse. You go to medical school, you go do your fellowship, and you become an awesome doctor. You go to echo tech school, and you become an echo tech, or radiology tech, or whatever. They all went to school to do what they're doing. I went to school for music, to be a music teacher, and I was a photographer and videographer for a hospital. And so nothing matched. And I was like, well, this is not going to go anywhere. So I started a degree, a master's degree in digital marketing, so that I could make sure that the stuff I was creating was going to get seen and could be useful for more than just like, ooh, that's really pretty. And it is a lot doing grad school on top of a full-time job with 3 kids and trying desperately to become, a great videographer, photographer, still not lose too much of the musicianship, but, also be a badass husband and a really wonderful father. It's a lot.
I'm
It is a
I'm
lot.
curious, can you have you compared the being a musician component to what you're doing now at the hospital? What skills carry over? I mean, I can imagine that there's a lot of like the organizational, the preparations, like the obviously the creative component, right? So your
Yeah.
music time in music school wasn't necessarily like just wasted and you're like photographer now, but like there's definitely, I mean, that's the core of who you are. So what's the dovetail here? What do you
I
see? What do you
I
flex
think it
on?
would be easier to talk about the stuff that doesn't transfer over,
Okay.
if that makes
Mm.
sense. Um, Learning how to pick out reeds doesn't really transfer over to anything that I do right now. Um,
Really?
yeah, yeah. Understanding how the shape and materials of the inside of a mouthpiece change the quality of sound on your saxophone doesn't transfer over. Learning learning to, how and when to focus on the details, when it's important to focus on the details, and when it's more important to look at the bigger picture does transfer over. When
Yeah.
you're working on preparing music for a show that's coming up, a concert that's coming up, you can stay and work on the trill and measure 37 until it's perfect. But then you'll miss out on the last 50 measures of the piece and they'll just be mediocre. But that trill would be amazing.
So
But
fast.
as a musician, sometimes you don't have the time to make that trill perfect because you have to get the rest of that. And that part transfers over. The knowing what parts of music elicit emotion and what parts of music um, it's okay to lean more on the visual side. So, and I'll throw oboe players under the bus because
Bring
oboe
it.
players are very good at being visual players. You know that people, when they listen
We
to a
move.
concert,
You mean we
they
move
hear
our
with their
bodies.
eyes. Yeah, they hear with their eyes just as much as they hear with
We do
their
move a
ears.
lot.
And oboe players are wonderful at playing visually as much as they are
Hmm.
audibly. And there are parts of music that, ooh, my daughter just got home and the bus drove by as the door opened. It was very loud.
Okay.
Um, Knowing what parts of music to focus on to elicit emotion. So when we're doing patient stories and, we get to like the climax of the story where you're like, are they going to live or like, what was the outcome of that? And when you finally hear that moment where they're like, and he survived and we got
Mm.
to take him home after being told we weren't going to survive. Like when I give those pieces to my video editor, and he's a very good video editor, they're pretty and they're touching. Then when he gives it to me, I'll be like, oh, I went a different way with the music, and we'll all watch it together in the office. And he's like, oh,
That hit.
that just hit
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That kind of stuff transfers over. All of the perseverance, like the grind that you have to do
Mhm.
I realized is a real asset. Knowing and then not just learning a music, but teaching can be a grind. Army stuff, like the ability to wait patiently for who knows how much time, you get good at it in the army, and that has been an incredible asset when you're filming in the operating room. And these surgeries can be like 10 hours long, and I just need one shot of them taking a heart out of a patient when they're doing a transplant. I don't know when it's going to happen. I can't look at them and be like, oh, they're going to take the heart out in the next 2 minutes. I'm not
I don't
that
need to
well
go to the
versed.
bathroom right now. No.
Yeah, but I can absolutely stand there for 2 hours with a camera in my hand, waiting for the moment, snap the picture, and then run. And I won't complain. I didn't know that was such an asset until we started hiring more people who don't
Have that
necessarily do
skill.
that quite as well. And they will go to the OR and they'll be like, oh, I was standing around, nothing was happening, so I left. And then they missed it.
Mhm.
The moment.
That sucks.
Um,
Yeah.
Take an
That's
opportunity.
really, really cool that you see all those different skills and how they transfer. Um, but I wanted to kind of circle back to what you said about the fact that you had this, music degree and you were the only person in the building who wasn't doing what they went to school for, quote. Um, how many musicians, really are still making a full-time living just, playing their instrument? Um, so I don't think you're alone in that. And look, you've gotten plenty of employment opportunities that sound very, sustainable and sound like they're financially, you know, good choices, um, through having gone through a music degree. Like I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit for, like you said, all the skills that are transferable having completed a music degree, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being part of that music world, I think, a lot of people compare it to sports and how sports
Mm-hmm.
kind of can feel very pointless when you're in high school and you're like, these are the real skills. And then you're playing a sport. Those non-tangible skills, like they're real and you see it, especially at my age. Like I'm 40 now. I see people who'd never developed those intangible skills. They were the book smart
Mm-hmm.
people. And when they get in a stressful situation or an uncomfortable situation, I guess is maybe a
Mm-hmm.
better way to describe it. And there are so many uncomfortable situations in life, especially nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know how to effectively move through it without making it worse.
Mm-hmm. That's
Um,
good. Yep.
So
and
through all of these chapters, who has been your biggest supporter, would you say?
oh,
Because you have to have
easily,
support in order to make all of these, like you say, in order to keep going and have this grit, right?
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
girl.
super easy. That's my
That's the
that's my
girl.
other half, my wife. She
My
has
wife.
always been there, and she has put up with way more than anyone should ever have to,
Mm.
especially with my shenanigans. And she's gone along with the journey. She's been, I always like to say she's been tagging along with all of my crazy decisions all through life. Um, and because she has. And uh, none of this would have been remotely possible. I mean, my very first job out of college, she found, not me. She found it.
Mm.
I would have been floundering for who knows how long. She's like, you should apply. Oh, they won't hire me. You don't know that. Just apply. And sure enough, like 3 weeks later, we were packing up a U-Haul and moving to New Mexico, which I would not have seen before that. And, we did the army. It was a lot. There was a lot of transition, and she like just took it, like went and raised the kids while I was off gallivanting around playing whatever instrument I was playing that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to get
Mm-hmm.
out of the army. I was like, I'm going to start a wedding business. We're going to be poor. Maybe I have to live with my parents for a while, which we ended up doing. And she's like, yeah, that's great. Not, that's a stupid idea. How are we going to pay for bills? Like that was never part of the conversation. Didn't even sneak in
Mm.
there. It was just yeah, that sounds wonderful. She even went and filmed weddings with me for a while. She was my second shooter.
Mm.
And we used to joke, it was sort of our date night. We'd get out of the house
Mm.
together. She'd get a camera. She wasn't nearly as into it as I was. Um, but she would go with me. And, during the ceremonies, when they're saying their vows, the things that are true, but are like a little cheesy, I would always look over at her at almost the same time she'd look over at me and she'd smile and be like, oh,
Oh.
and I would know, like, we're thinking about the same stuff, or that's happened to us before too. Um, Dance floors, you see the couple and they're kissing and
Mm.
stuff, and you're like, okay, I've got enough footage of that. And I turn around and there's my wife, like, do you want to dance for a little bit? We don't have to get all
Yeah.
this footage. Yeah,
Oh, that's
that's,
great.
yeah, she's my rock. Um, and my mom's always been she's a teacher. My mom was a teacher. And I call her for advice all the time, especially when I don't know what to say or I'm afraid to ask my wife because,
Mm-hmm.
you
There's
know, life is
you
scary.
don't know what to
And
say sometimes. I'm not even being sarcastic. That never crosses my mind as you being empty of words.
I've had lots of practice saying the wrong things. I think that's why it always seems like
Um,
I always have something good to say.
fair,
Lots of
Mm.
practice saying the wrong
fair,
stuff.
Fair.
And I've spent a lot of time working on knowing what to say in the right situation and understanding what other people are going through in order to say the right thing in the right situation. I think it's one of those necessary things to be a good dad and a good husband or a good human being. And yeah, so I'm glad it seems like I always know what to say. So it's not
Yeah.
always the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like you've had a lot of different experiences and chapters, and you're still growing, you're still evolving, which is super cool. What tips do you have for like a younger musician, that's something that you wish someone would have told you in college or right out of school?
Don't be afraid to try. I think one of uh, and maybe this wasn't as much of an issue for me, but it has been with my students, with other Army musicians, with our kids, with people in general nowadays, is there's such a fear of failure or a fear of rejection, a fear of things not working out,
Mm-hmm.
um, that people stop trying the hard stuff. Um, if you start in middle school or high school and you're like, I'm gonna learn how to play bassoon, and one day I'll be part of the New York Philharmonic. That's a really lofty goal. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try for it. And I think too often people are like, that just seems too hard, or I don't think that's going to work out. So I'm going to try something different, or just don't do anything at all. And I have gone to college to become a band director. I was a band director. Then I gave that up to become a musician, thinking I'll just do this until I retire. I gave that up to become a wedding videographer because that wasn't working out. And I was like, I'll just do this until I retire. Gave that up to become a photographer at a children's hospital. And each one of those experiences didn't end up working out in the long run, but has made the next step so much more successful. You gain so much by trying and then failing. And then you move on. You're like way more capable than you were before had you just started on the second step or started on the third step. And I think too often people are like, I just want to start on the right step and make sure that that's the right step before I get going. And I, I think there's just too many missed opportunities trying and messing up.
Dude, that's so good.
So
I
when
wish
you
I
say
was
when you
brave like that.
say when you say, I tried this band director thing, it didn't work out. I tried this, you know, photography thing, it didn't work out. What does that mean? Didn't work out?
So I guess when I started band directing, I thought I was going to be a band director, and I was going to be a band director until I retired. I was going to be in school for the rest of my life, and that I would learn and grow and create community. And when I died, I'd have 10,000 people at my wedding or at my funeral that I had taught over my entire life, that lives that I had affected. And that was like the dream, right? And then when I get there, I'm like, oh, I don't have hardly any time for my family. And New Mexico might not have been the best place to start as a band director because there's definitely challenges that you face in New Mexico that you don't necessarily face in Texas. But, financially, it wasn't working out for my family, and socially, it wasn't really working out for us. And so we pivoted and tried something new. And I had enough skill as a musician to be able to get into the Army and play. And I flourished there, had a wonderful time. And I thought, well, who wouldn't want to do this for the rest of their career? Free medical insurance, like good pay, like I don't have to pick out my clothes every morning because it's
I
always the
love that.
same.
Yeah,
No,
I've talked about that before. Yes, I don't like deciding what to wear every day. So that was a good thing.
who does? Who does? I
Mhm.
have 5 shirts I
Sarah
wear in a
does.
cycle.
Sarah does. He loves it.
I don't know if
Um,
I always love it. I sometimes love it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I would get bored of wearing the same thing every day, definitely.
Mhm.
Um, okay, well, it sounds like honestly you have a lot of courage. I don't think so many people, especially musicians, are comfortable in saying, like, kind of like we said before, like you're trained to do this one thing, and if and when it doesn't work out, so many people feel paralyzed and insecure about that next step, or, knowing how to pivot, or having the courage to take that step. How do you think you've developed that skill? Because it seems like it's kind of something that, is maybe, pretty ingrained in you at this point, and maybe it comes naturally, but you've had to develop that muscle somehow. So what tips can you give people on that, and how to just do it?
I don't, that's a really hard question. Um, and my wife and I are trying to figure out how to do that with our kids right now, how to instill the desire, the belief that they can do anything, or they should be able to try anything, and then it's okay to not get it right. Um, Sometimes we chalk it up to, the things that are said at home. Like when I was a kid, my mom would always say, well, you can put anything you put your mind, you can do anything you put your mind to if you just try. Um, and so from a really early age, my teacher mom would always just like, just try, just go for it. Of course you can do it. Like, just put your mind to it and you can do it. And for the most part, the things that I was really interested in, I was pretty successful at. And
How
I
did
think maybe, go ahead.
I was gonna say, how did you bounce back when you failed? Because obviously you weren't awesome at every little thing. I'm sure your calculus is subpar.
Actually, my calculus was rock solid. That was the only
My
AP
bad.
class that I did all through
My
high
bad.
school. I got
But
to
you know
college and they were
that.
like, you have your math credits. And I was like, I
So
took AP Calc. You don't need
Sarah
to take any
talks a
math.
lot. Sarah talks a lot about resilience and things with her coaching and
Hmm.
her mentorship, and like, where did you develop this kind of resilience to be like, okay, I don't just want to throw it all away and go crawl under a rock and cry. Like, I mean, obviously you had bills to pay and you had to, but like when you're a kid and, moving through school and all these changes, like there's a resiliency component there that is not a natural thing. It's a learned thing. I know the
I
army kind of
think
pushes a lot of that on us too, but
they
before
do.
that starts.
I think even from an early age, there was a certain comfort in leaning on other people when you
Mm,
needed to. And it's not always comfortable. It can often be very difficult, especially for a guy to be
really?
like, I
Yeah.
can't do this. Never been comfortable for me to be like, I can't do this. And for a long time, having people tell me you can't do something, or that your external limitations on my capacities would just encourage me to push even harder. Um, but when things got tough, I'm trying to think back of all the times where we were hit with a hardship and then had to like bail. There were almost always the times where there wasn't anyone to lean on, or like we didn't have enough people to lean on. And in Albuquerque, when my wife and I were both feeling sort of lost and aimless and lonely, we didn't have enough people, or enough of the right kind of people to lean on to make us feel supported. In the army, it was different. For the first several years, there was always someone to like
There's
go out
always,
to lunch with and vent. And Jaleen was the first person I met in Texas when I got into the National Guard band. That was always the first person to say, "How are you?" And not like flippant in the hallway, "Oh, hey man, how's it going?" It was walking up to you, looking you in the eye and saying, "How are you? Like, how are you really?" And then
mm,
waiting to watch and to listen and to observe. And when you have those kinds of people surrounding you all the time, and Sarah, I don't have to tell you this, it makes you feel like you're able to do more. Like it's okay to get stuff hard because you know people have got your back.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
And when you reciprocate, you end up attracting the same kind of people that do that. And when you have a little network of people who are just have you all the time, it makes it easier to try stuff and to fail because people are going to be like, "Oh, that's okay. We'll try something different next time."
Let's
Or,
pivot.
yeah,
That's
let's
awesome.
pivot.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, I have a wife who's
Mm-hmm.
always there and will always tell me,
He's your
even if
best
she
friend.
doesn't necessarily believe it, it's fine. We'll figure it out. We always figure it out. And we always do.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't ever not figured it out. And every marriage, we go through crazy stuff, but we always figure it out together. And So if I were going to be giving advice to someone who is young and maybe afraid of trying new stuff, I maybe wouldn't focus on the resiliency tools as much as I would focus on locating and finding those friends who are service oriented, who have like a real tangible love for you as a friend, and holding them as close as you can so that when you do try something super scary, that they're sort of trying it with you. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Completely, yeah. Well, and community is actually one of the pillars of resilience, really. So, you don't have to do it alone, is like what you're saying. It's a big,
Hmm.
big component to have people in your
Yeah, which is
corner.
weird to say as a musician who's, you're the only one
Mhm.
playing your instrument, but you
Mhm.
can't be in a symphony by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a hard thing for a lot of us to develop that skill to be able to be vulnerable and reliant on other people. Um, and also to just make time for other people when we feel like, oh, there's just too much practicing to do,
Yeah.
right? Well, thanks, Matt. Do you have anything else you wanted to make sure we get in here today?
No, I want you guys to do more episodes. So there's not enough episodes
We
on
we
the
have plenty of big
podcast.
evil plans.
We're
Don't
working
worry.
on it. We're
Yeah,
working on it. And
we have some really good stuff.
you being here is
You're
helping
the
to build
first.
the library.
You're
Yes.
first
First
Yay!
guest.
guest.
Yay!
Yes.
Very exciting. I'm
So
super
thank
stoked
you
for you
so
guys.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks so much for your
All right.
time. And thank you. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Bye. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.